Hello, interns and associates, and welcome back to another episode of the Cubicle podcast. I'm one of the co-hosts, Charlie Armstrong, and today I have the honor and pleasure not only interviewing a very interesting industry-related professional with vast amount of experiences in many different sectors. He also happens to be my father, and this is Bill Armstrong. And to introduce more about my dad and one of my biggest inspirations and role models that I have today, along with my mother, he is the co-founder of a brand called Neversecond Incorporate, a sports nutrition company for endurance athletes. Now he helps support athletes and creates products for them that help them to create and have optimal performance when racing and competing and training too. But he also has been a professional athlete himself, being a long distance runner that would specialize in the 5K, I recall. You do 10K and then also half and full marathon.
That's
So
right.
obviously he really liked to run and he's running that far, right? He also was a professional runner that was signed on with Nike. After that, he jump started in starting his company with also my mom called Whipsmart Inc. And he would help create beauty products for many different brands that we know of today for about 20 years. Now he's working at these events for Neversecond, as they did sell the company in 2018, where now he is striving to become a powerhouse in the sports nutrition industry. And let's welcome Bill Armstrong.
Thank you for having me, Charlie. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is such a pleasure too, and I want to thank you so much for being a part of this, because I figured that I have been surrounded and grew up with very inspirational people, so why not have them on the podcast?
Well, it's absolutely a pleasure to be here.
Yes, no, thank
Thank you.
you. So walk us through your journey from the beginning, because you have a lot to uncover. How did you get into being a long distance runner? What was the story?
Gosh, it is the first sport I ever loved. I played as a kid. I played soccer a lot and hockey. But maybe when I was about 11, I did my first race. I did a 10K and I fell in love with running. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I kept playing soccer maybe for another couple of years, but I just absolutely fell in love with it. I loved training. It gave me a complete freedom as a kid. And I started racing, gosh, probably 20, 30, 40 times a year from the time I was like 13. So I was really into it really young.
That's
Mhm.
very cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, you started from the absolute beginning and you had a very early jump start to your career, which
Mhm.
is really cool to see.
Yeah.
So with starting that early, everything was kind of on steroids, like very young. Like how was it starting that young? Do you think it was smart? Do you think it was not a good idea? How was it?
Well, I mean, my running career started really in the infancy of running. I mean, today when you go outside, you'll see lots of people jogging on the street or running. But back then, I mean, I'm 54 now. I was running really in the 1982, 83, which if you were running back then, you were running from something. There weren't a lot of people running for exercise back then. But I just loved going out. For after I'd finished school, I couldn't wait to get off the bus. I remember in junior high school just to be able to go running. I was like, got home, changed as fast as I could, got out the door. I don't know what it was. I mean, I know now that a lot of that is endorphins, these really positive effects from exercise. But at the time, I just loved the way it made me feel. Total freedom. I grew up in a house that wasn't necessarily a happy home. There were good things and there were not so good things going on at my home. And so being able to just get out and kind of explore and go on my own adventure was freedom for a 12 or 13-year-old.
So your reason for running, because you were running from something, do you think it was your family life and also just the stresses? So running alleviated that for you and gave you a happiness and motivation doing it?
I mean, it wasn't just like running from something. It was what I love to do. So it was certainly an escape from some of what was going on in my house, but then it was also a great way to just kind of see the world and have a new adventure every day. So we had a golf course near my house, and that's where I used to love to run most. It was about a half mile away, and we just run down the fairways. I'm sure the golfers hated it, but where I loved to go as a kid.
That's great.
Hmm.
No, that's amazing.
Hmm.
So, did you learn like any valuable lessons, maybe starting running that young? And what was challenging you to keep running and motivating you running just outside of doing it? Was it also people maybe or?
Well, there were certain friends. There was a couple of pivotal people that I met that, we had a house out on the east end of Long Island, and there was a guy across the street. His name was Larry Talbert. He was a stockbroker in the city, and he used to do his weekends out there. And I used to see him go out in the morning, go running. And there was this lighthouse loop. It was like 5K. And I just asked him if I could go one day. And then before you knew it, I was running with him almost daily for a summer. That was really one of my first real memories of falling in love with the sport. I think competing at some point was really important for me because I started getting a lot better really fast. And I guess one of the lessons is that if you put effort effort into something, you can improve at it. And I absolutely loved the idea of competing. I'm a really competitive person. And so to me, yes, there's the joy of running, but then there was the competitive side, which I really wanted to, see how not just competing with other people, but competing with yourself, improving your time, challenging yourself. I mean, one thing you learn from sport is how far you can go and how hard you can push yourself. And what another thing I really loved about running was the opportunity to get as much out of myself as I possibly could.
Mhm.
So that was, and then that became racing became one of the most important aspects of the sport. There's the training or what you're doing every day, but then inevitably every weekend there was a new race, and I loved racing.
Right.
Yeah.
So regarding racing, when did you start racing? Because I know you started so young. What was that for you?
I started, gosh, when I was, my first race was really at like 11, and that was just the first 10K, just jumping in a race. By the time I was 13, I was probably, or 13, 14, 15 years old, I was racing anywhere between 20 to 40 times a year. When I was into high school, I was started doing cross country and track, but at the same time, I was running races on my own too. So by the time I was really 13, 14, 15 years old, I was racing every weekend, just about.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Were there any specific races that you were doing at that time other than the 10K?
I mean, you go to your local road races. Long Island has, at the back then, Long Island, where we live, was one of the key areas where there was a running boom happening. There was a store which was based in Huntington on Long Island here called Super Runner Shop. And the owner there, Gary Murky, was really a pioneer in the running movement. I think he was one of the first winners of the New York Marathon. And he opened these stores. He had ones in the city and he opened one in Huntington where I lived. And there were serious runners there, adult runners who were this incredible inspiration. And they were really at these races on the weekend. I saw them as people to look up to. They were running really fast times, and I just loved being at the races and seeing them there. But there was almost a new race every weekend. So, as a family, we would drive to a lot of them. And then when I wasn't racing road races, mostly 5Ks and 10Ks, there were races around school as well. So I ran junior high school tracking. They didn't have track; they had cross country. And then in high school, for at least for the first couple of years, I started running with track and cross country, and then I kind of weaned out and really was racing more on my own midway through high school.
Wow, that's
Hmm.
crazy.
Hmm.
That's insane. It's
Yeah.
so interesting to see such an early start to a running, especially how it boomed so quickly for you. Because I know normally it's more later down the road, but for you it was so early on. Just kind of really unique to see, I think, for a lot of different reasons. But I think that's just so cool to see so young in that regard. Because I feel like for me and for so many other people today, it's kind of a little bit later after, starting at like 11 to 13, at least I've gotten that take before, right? Do you think it was smart to start that young, or do you think you would have wished you started older? What's your feeling on that?
Nowadays, the current company that mom and I own, we are at a lot of races and we meet a lot of young people that are doing things that I would have been warned against back in the 80s. You're told if you run too young, you're going to have injuries and these sorts of things. I don't know. I mean, there's just so much competing information out there. I mean, I meet kids right now that are teenagers running 100-mile, 200-mile ultra runs. So things have changed. If I look back at it now, like, was it smart back then? Yeah, I mean, I was warned against it. Back then we didn't know really what if there was any danger. I never felt like it was any sort of danger. I had injuries just like everyone else. I had injuries as a young runner. As I got more and more competitive, you just get more injuries because you're competing a lot more and at a really high level. But I don't have any regrets, honestly, from starting that young.
I see.
Mhm.
It was your story, it's your path, and I think it taught you a lot.
I did. It did. I learned a lot from it. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So going on more about that. So obviously you ran a lot through your teenage years and then you started transitioning into your young adult years with college
Mhm.
and you went to University of Vermont.
Right.
Did you end up running in Vermont or did you end up going to
No, by the time I was in college, I was pretty much road racing. And I also was fortunate enough to meet a couple of people who were really high end Nordic skiers, cross country ski racers. And University of Vermont, their ski program at the time, they were NCAA, the best in the NCAA. Seemed like half the people on the team were either going to the Olympics or Olympic level. And I fell in love with Nordic skiing as well back then. I was pretty good. I had a pretty good engine. I mean, technique wise, I had a lot to learn, but I kind of jumped on. It's very unusual to walk on a team like that. Everyone is pretty much there on scholarship, but I was able to kind of be able to compete at a halfway decent level. So during college, I did that and then I road raced. And that's really what they had at the time. I raced mostly regionally around New England because it had to be a car distance. Back then, we weren't flying like today. Getting on a plane is a lot easier. You think nothing to get on a plane ride, but back then that would have been considered, expensive, really expensive. And for a college kid who didn't have a lot of money, driving to races was mostly what I did.
Crazy how you're able to join the Vermont ski team, but also do road race. Did you ever find that to be too much on you? Was it tiring, straining, especially with balancing, being a student and all the other activities you were doing? What was your
I mean, to be frank, I remember I went to University of Vermont because of its location. I didn't go because for education. I went there because of the training was great. I mean, I truly took for the entire period of college is 4 years and did what I wanted to do, train and race, and I did everything I wanted to do. I did after graduating from college kind of felt like I lost time because I didn't care about school at all. I pretty much just competed. And I mean, I was able to get halfway decent grades, but my focus was entirely on racing and training. I definitely was working on borrowed time. Like if you look at career wise, I remembered after school feeling this enormous pressure to start thinking about career because I felt like I lost time. Looking back on it now, I meet a lot of young athletes, a lot of athletes that are in their mid, late 20s, some even in their 30s who are still competing as professional athletes. And we'll talk about that. And a lot of times I'll tell them, hey, I tell them about my experience and then I tell them a learning lesson, which is really, I think my opinion now is much more accurate than it was back then, which is that you can always go into career that isn't in sport, but you have a very limited window in sport to do the best you can. So if you're wondering if you're 25 and you're really talented and you're competing at a high level in sport and your career is calling you, you have to make a hard decision whether or not, when you want to kind of transition. For me, I transitioned around 26 years old out of sport into career. It was a really hard transition because everything up to that point, all I cared about was sport. But at some point, I knew I was on borrowed time. I wasn't getting any better, and I had to really start over and reinvent myself at 26 years old, which today that doesn't mean much. Back then, it felt like I lost 4 years in some ways, which is probably not the right view.
That's okay. You
Yeah.
know what? Like we said before, everyone has their own path. And I'm sure it was an adjustment, post your running career, especially with your road racing. And I would like to touch on you being a professional athlete as well, which we can get to that in a moment. But so to transition into your career, how was it? Like, what did you start doing? How did you start getting right into it?
Well, I mean, like so many young people, I was competing at a fairly high level, not good enough to be one of the top level racers in the US, struggling, waiting tables. And I remember there was a patron in there, Japanese guys having dinner, and we got to talking, and they asked me if I wanted to come and help them teach some of their Japanese employees English. And I agreed to give it a shot and I didn't really know where it would lead, but it sounded like something to do. I hadn't really thought about career at that point. I mean, I was waiting tables and running, racing. So I gave it a try. Really loved it. I fell in love with the people that I was working with, and then I had a hard decision to make at that point, which was continue running, continue the struggle, or was I going to actually go into working for a company? That point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but it was a start. And I think the lesson there is to try things and keep your mind open to opportunities that come across your path and decide for yourself if you want to take them or not. I took the chance and I really enjoyed it. And then that led to one decision, or one good decision led to another good decision.
That's amazing. That's
Mhm.
great that you're able to teach them English, especially with knowing that you did graduate UVM with a degree in English. Do you think the degree that you have obtained has allowed you to not only just execute what you've maybe have learned through applying that from being inside the classroom to now on the outside with now teaching students English, but also later down your career as well?
Gosh, looking back at it, the only thing can say I got from an English degree was being able to write well, which you kind of need in life, and to analyze what you read. So I guess I could learn some critical thinking skills. Looking back, I mean, I when I look at the actual career path, whether it's from Whipsmart and Neversecond, I certainly could have probably used a different degree. I think if I had like a business degree, that probably would have been great because I certainly had to learn a lot of things on the fly that I probably wished I had learned in school. But I got an English degree. I was a pretty good writer. I was able to use that skill tangentially, but not directly. But I certainly had to learn a lot on the fly in business through experience. The English degree just really helped me tangentially.
As I was gonna say, it's definitely you learn a lot of learning lessons when starting a business.
Mhm.
Clearly, I know both of your mom have learned a lot, not only just through conceptually how to operate and run one, but also through each other with working together as business partners. So I can imagine having an English degree can be kind of tough. But it is that idea where not only it's not always about what you study that always is like the linear path if that's what you're going to pursue outside of college. And I think you do learn that a lot through so many different people. And you're a perfect example of that, along with even mom as well. She learned Japanese studies in college and she doesn't do anything Japanese related now. So it's very cool to see how that's they're not always equivalent to your future. And I think you and both, you both, mom and you, are great examples of that. So I think
We
it's
are.
really great. It's really great to touch on that. And I think that's a lesson that I think a lot of people, such as the interns and associates, need to learn. That it doesn't always. Regarding how you've operated and started a business, when did you start and when did the idea kind of spark into your guys' head to start one together?
Well, it's funny because I'll meet people who, for instance, I've met a lot of entrepreneurs over the years, and some of them have a brilliant idea and it's tremendously successful. I'm always like, wow, that's incredible that that actually worked so easily for you, or what seemingly so easily. I'd say most times in my life, I've had to finesse and adjust the businesses to make them better. Like there were key moments, even with our first company. So mom and I started the first company right around the time we were getting married. And it was a very typical out of the basement business. It definitely went through two or three key transitions that came from market feedback. In other words, the idea was flawed in the beginning. And I think this is a really good lesson for a lot of entrepreneurs. Not every idea is perfectly baked once it comes out. Like at the time, mom and I, with the first company, we knew we wanted to build products for brands or work with brands, and whether it's their packaging or what's inside the product. When we first started the company, we weren't presenting it the right way or the best way. And I had a couple of key moments while we had the company where I had a conversation that really struck me, where someone said, remember one, she said, "Gosh, that's kind of all you're doing," and sounded a little bit, it was a little insulting. I remember I remember the conversation where she's like, "That's really all you're doing? It seems like it's not fully baked yet." But it made me think really about how I could create more value with the company. Because at that point I was selling services, but I wasn't selling it in a package. It wasn't packaged well. We then adjusted the company's presentation so that it was easier for customers that we were calling on, the brands. It was easier for them to understand and implement us into their strategy. And that was a major moment for us. One in particular moment that really changed the course of the company. We became I would say, a widely sought out, highly sought out B2B, that is business to business partner for brands. Originally, we could make this for you. We could do this for you. This was very disjointed when we first presented the company. And by the time we sold the company, we were able to really provide a full turnkey service for them and present it in a way that was easy to understand and easy to implement. And we took off from there. Once we really dialed in how we wanted to present the company, the business really took off. And gosh, as a 20-year run, I would say the last 10 years were really good. And we were acquired in 2018 and exited the business in 2019. Yeah,
That's an amazing journey.
it was a good
That's
journey. Yeah.
amazing. So I know it was very beauty based.
Mhm.
Did you like that aspect about the company, or how did you feel with now being with beauty and cosmetics?
It's interesting. I didn't necessarily seek that out, but I enjoyed the work. I did enjoy the work. Like we worked with brands, and I would be excited to work with amazing brands that you would see in store. If you were to go into a Sephora or an Ulta, you would see a lot of the brands we work with. And that was really exciting to see the work. Like you would make something, you talk to a brand owner and you'd be able to say, okay, I'm going to bring your idea to reality. And that's really what we specialized in, is listening to what they're doing. We would engineer create all the intellectual property. That would be if there's packaging, we would create the unique forms. We would engineer it for them. We would formulate the products. We would then create all the visual things, the 3D printed models to help them understand and see what they're going to get. And then, of course, we would do all the manufacturing from the IP assets that we built. It was extremely exciting for us to build those sorts of things. I love doing that, the creative process. So everything from graphic design and 3D engineering and visual 3D rendering or modeling, and then manufacturing was super exciting for us. We didn't choose specifically to be in beauty, but we became very good at it. And so the lesson there is kind of like, if something's working, you don't have a lot of friction, evaluate the friction you're going to have. The beauty industry really welcomed us, and we became well known for doing some of the best work in the space, and we just went with it. But we didn't really seek that out. I liked working more with brands. We did work with brands. We did work with celebrities. I definitely preferred working with brands where there was more of a clear understanding of and respect for branding and brand development, and there's a story behind the brand. That would be the stuff I would get excited about. Some of the celebrity stuff I was much less excited about because it just seemed more like licensing deals. I was much less excited about that than I was around working with brands that had a unique story to tell.
So now you mentioned brands and celebrities that you would work with.
Mhm.
Why don't you tell us about them? What were the brands and celebrities that you were working with, and what were your experiences through it?
Well, I mean, we worked with a lot of brands, probably 300 over 20 years. I would say some of the brands that I was most excited about the work we did were probably Rag and Bone. I think Rag and Bone's still in the market. I don't shop
Yeah.
very much, so you have to bear with me. Kopari, which is coconut inspired beauty. Find it in Sephora, I think. It's Ulta still. Sol de Janeiro was one of the other brands. I mean, I can go on and on. There were a lot of them. Helmet Lang, which fragrance. If you walk through Sephora, we probably worked with 30 to 40% of the brands in some capacity there. But that was really exciting. The celebrities I'll probably not mention, but we did work on a bunch of celebrity work. But you're mostly doing that as licensing deals. Some of the projects I really enjoyed with celebrity, well, we did some work for Ariana Grande.
Was Melanie Martinez? Was it?
Yeah, we did Melanie Martinez too. Yep. I think I was going to say the names here. It's been a while, but Melanie Martinez was one as well. Yeah,
I remember.
we did a lot of work in with celebrities as well, for sure.
I remember when you guys were telling me that you were working on these projects, I was like, I want to meet them. And then it never happened.
Yeah.
But maybe in the future, down the line,
Yeah.
if I ever meet Ariana Grande in public, I'm like, my parents helped jumpstart your fragrance. So just letting you know, sweetie. But no, that's really interesting. That's
Uh-huh.
so cool that you're able to work with so many different brands and celebrities. That's really cool to have that kind of background and those opportunities within the company.
Very lucky.
And
We were very lucky. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Mhm.
So I know that obviously you would go to trade shows and you would travel a lot for work. And I know a lot of the traveling had to do with a lot of manufacturing
Mhm.
work, which I know was mostly based in China and
Mhm.
abroad. How was that? How was that traveling a lot for work and everything? 'Cause I know you did a lot.
Gosh, so first of all, I used to go to China a lot, and it's hard. The people are wonderful. We had a great team there. We had an engineering team in China. Wonderful people. It's hard being away from home. Those long trips can really wear you out, but I enjoyed the process a lot. We met some amazing facilities there. I think the probably the most important lesson I learned is the importance of being friends and making friends with the people that you work with. So many brands work with China, but they never actually go to China to meet the people they're working with. For me, it was really important to be there and meet them. It was demanding, hard. It's a 16-hour flight, 16-hour plus flight from JFK to Hong Kong, and it's 12 hours of time difference. So you're pretty beat up from doing that, but definitely the good outweighed the bad. We built some phenomenal relationships there. We still have our team. I still stay in touch with them. 7 years after leaving the company, still stay in touch, and that's some of the good stuff that really is left from that experience.
I can imagine.
Mhm.
That's terrific. It's
Mhm.
great that how your journey has able to contribute to many of the friendships and amazing people that has helped you along your path of operating your business.
Absolutely.
And I would love to, we didn't cover this before, but I feel like we definitely need to talk about this.
Mhm.
So obviously, you and mom were both the co-founders of
Mhm.
Whipsmart.
Mhm.
What were your specific positions? Like, what would you guys both do work-wise for Whipsmart?
So inevitably, by default, I became probably the lead salesperson. So I would call on a lot of the brands to develop the projects, and then I would primarily handle the sketching of the assets. In other words, like, what would this product look like? Again, none of what I was trained to do. The first thing I remember in the first 2 years, I basically self-taught, built myself Illustrator, which at the time was hard to do. There weren't a lot of resources. So I used to do a lot of the sketching and then be able to interface with the engineers to build the products the way we wanted them to be. So inevitably, you become a very capable at dealing with engineering assets, SolidWorks files, and then interfacing with the customer to make sure that you get approval on the concepts and the ideas. And then inevitably you're involved in all steps of the manufacturing. As the customer interface, you're dealing with problems that come up, so that's a lot of what I had to do there as well. Mom primarily dealt with the formulas, so what's inside. So if you had to to simplify it, I worried about really what's outside, how things look like, and she really worked more about what's inside, making sure the quality is there, what's inside the package.
Right. Yes, I recall that. That's
Mhm.
very interesting. That's
Mhm.
so cool. So yeah, you were external, she was internal. That's
That's
like the
right.
best way to put it. No,
That's the
that's
best
very
way to put it.
interesting. That's so cool that you guys both kind of like had the science, but yet the art behind your brand. And that really just comes to show what the beauty and cosmetics industry really is
That's
behind the
right.
products. And that's so interesting because not only is there such a science with that industry, there's also a lot of science of what you're working on right now and after you sold your company called
Mhm.
Neversecond.
Mhm.
So why don't you walk us through your journey with Neversecond and starting it? Because I know it's different because what Whipsmart was a company, this is a brand.
Mhm.
And it's different now with it's not B2B anymore, it's B2C,
Right.
direct to consumer now.
Right.
So why don't you tell us kind of how you started Neversecond and yeah, what was the inspiration behind it?
So, mom and I sold our company in 2018, and we exited the business in 2019. That's what it called an earnout period, where after you sell the company and the time before you actually leave and don't come in the door anymore, that is your earnout period. So, I left the business in 2019. Mom stayed on a little bit longer, and at that time I left, I was 47, and it was my first taste of what not working felt like, which was difficult. I would say impossible. I remember getting up in the morning. At that point, just training was what I enjoyed doing, lifting weights and things like this. And I would say I made it about a month of doing very little. And I started to think about, okay, what would the next chapter look like? And so what I really wanted to do was combine the love of building products with working with endurance athletes, which are really like my favorite people. They're the people I've known, loved my whole life. It's the landscape I know. So that was really kind of the genesis of how Neversecond started baking, and it was very different. Mom and I had a lot of experience working with brands in our last company, so we got to see a lot of brands fail, some succeed. We learned a lot from that, and it certainly was. We thought it would be a great adventure, something we could start where we actually, hey, we're going to try and build a brand of our own from the ground up with a lot of the things we know. Hopefully, of course, with all businesses, you do have a blind spots. There's certain things we didn't know coming into this new business, but it's been going into year 5 now. We launched the business in 2021. July is when we actually turned the lights on for Neversecond, and been a heck of a ride ever since.
So with starting the brand Neversecond, it's very interesting because I feel like you had Whipsmart, which I feel like was like mom's true love, and
Mhm.
now it's your turn to now start a company where it's like your true love and your background. So I've always kind of like found that very interesting learning
Mhm.
about that from both of you guys because
Mhm.
I know you guys are now doing part 2 of still working together of being co-founders. So how has it been working with somebody else as being a co-founder? Have you found any challenges working together? Or how has it been so far having that dynamic with going into the second phase of it all?
Well, I think it's definitely different. In our first company, we both had different skill sets, right? In this new company, Neversecond, where there's a brand involved, it's very different because it's public facing and things have also changed a lot. So it presents unique challenges. Like, for instance, with our other company, I can tell you social media had zero impact on the business, where today with Neversecond, social media is important. It's an important aspect of the business. Brands are kind of public personas. You have to learn how to do that. Mom and I quickly are, as with the other company though, we both kind of resumed our skill set, like what we're good at. I'm good at creative. I think that's Marlon would say relatively good at creative. Great design work. So that inherently, that's probably a skill set I bring to the company. Mom and I both kind of work together, cooking up the product development. We both kind of handle that in equal parts. So that's really been a really good because that's our real skill set. And then we've had to learn how to do this. I think one of the things that's is unique is that this is really, for me, it's chapter 3. I mean, there was running, then there was Whipsmart, and then there's this. For mom, also had a whole business before Whipsmart, and so it's really chapter 3 for her too. And so as people that are experienced, we're going into chapter 3. I think one of the things we're proving is that we're always willing to learn. One of the things I find a little bit disappointing is when I meet people of a certain age, or people my age, for instance, and they're not willing to learn new things. That can be a bit disappointing. I think you always have to be curious, and be willing to learn. Since we started this business, I just speaking from my own experience, I had to learn really how to do best practice in Instagram. I had to learn how to run our Klaviyo, our CRM. I had no experience running a CRM before. Had to learn how to operate the Shopify, our website. to in multiple countries. There's a lot that we had to learn. And I think that's the real challenging part is to learn all of those new things and really embrace them because life and work is evolving constantly. And to really stay on top of things, sometimes requires a real willingness to be creative and a willingness to be curious.
I was going to say, you definitely learn a lot because it's just such different business formats. So I can imagine it's definitely an adjustment that you're always willing to learn. And that can look different for everybody, but for you two, especially, I think learning how to operate different types of businesses is definitely the huge take that you can take on from that time.
Sure.
So, with starting the brand Neversecond, tell us about it more. So, what are some of like the takes from Neversecond? Like, what do you guys specifically sell?
Okay.
So the interns and associates know all about the products.
Okay. So going back to the beginning, when we first started, we knew that we wanted to work with endurance athletes, and we knew that we could bring a product development strength, which is what mom and I are good at. So we knew what we had. Generally speaking, we had very loose idea. We were very lucky to be put in touch with a gentleman, Oscar Eichendrup. He's a Dutch scientist who is a global leader scientist from the science behind performance fueling. And we had some early conversations with him. I think one of the key questions we asked, which I think every entrepreneur has to ask, is there a purpose to this brand? Like, are we bringing something new to the market? And so we had that really difficult conversation early on with Oscar, and we explain a little bit about what we do. We make the fueling products that endurance athletes use. So if you're a marathon runner, you're taking energy gels. If you're a cyclist, professional cyclist, you're taking drink mix and energy gels. If you're a trail runner, your mix is slightly different. These are fueling products that are delivering carbohydrate to the athlete and sodium and fluid, all the necessities for high performance in the most efficient way. So they're able to take higher intakes of carbohydrate, sodium, and fluid with a reduced risk of getting them sick. That's really our challenge as a brand. Beyond that, that's our basic fueling range. We are also now working on an innovation range, but what we make is high performance products for endurance athletes. Oscar is a really key partner because it really it's a wonderful marriage in that mom and I develop the products and Oscar guides the direction of the products. One of the things with performance nutrition in particular, there's a lot of snake oil. There are a lot of products that don't do what they say, and there's no evidence behind them. There's no clinical data. All of our products at Neversecond are supported by clinical data. Oscar is a highly published global authority in performance nutrition for the last 30 years. So when we build a product that is aligned with his science, we know that it's coming to the market as a gold standard. And our job as a brand is to make products that are gold standard manufactured, that follow clinical data, that are banned substances tested, so they're trusted. They're a premium product, and we sell those products to not just direct to consumer. We also sell to retailers across bike and running with a lot of races. So we really become this important part of the ecosystem that is endurance sports. There are thousands of races around the country and thousands of retailers that work in this space, and we really provide, I think, right now some of the best products globally in the space. I should mention, we are in US, Europe, UK, Latin America, and Asia, Australia, and New Zealand as well.
So just you're a global powerhouse now.
We are global at this point. That is right.
That
Yep.
is amazing.
Mhm.
That's terrific.
Mhm.
So obviously, I know you have been to trade shows for
Mhm.
Whipsmart
Mhm.
back when you were in operations with Whipsmart before you
Mhm.
sold the company.
Mhm.
And I know now you travel a lot for races around the country and even around the world too
Mhm.
for different expos and those events as well. They're kind of similar trade shows and expos where you're explaining your business, the services, the products, everything in that regard. What do you think have been the differences and takes, and which kind of experiences have you liked better, the expos or the trade shows?
Gosh, so trade shows there were very few trade shows we went to with the old company. It was maybe two or three a year. They are where brands would come to meet with people like us, the manufacturers or the developers, to talk about projects. It's very formal. It's very shishi. It's in Javits or in Metropolitan Pavilion in the city. Was one in Vegas called Cosmoprof. They're fancy, and in the beauty industry, inherently, people kind of dress the part, right? I definitely prefer where I am now, expos. I go to a lot of races, and that's talking with athletes. They're my people. I understand them more. I have more in common with them for sure. I definitely prefer it. It's definitely less formal. I mean, I'm wearing Crocs or Birkenstocks to most events, but it's more fun. I love being in the field with athletes doing amazing things. It's just a bit more grounded for me. I like being around people that are putting it all out there to see what they can get out of themselves. That's to me is more exciting and interesting than the other. I really enjoy that. But it's very different. We this year we're at 115 events. So there's almost two a week throughout this year. I'm not obviously at all of them, but we've built out a team now to do these events, and they're all around the country. They're in some of the most beautiful places too. They're also, I should mention, they're all outdoors. Where like beauty industry events, we're at like places like the Javits Center in Manhattan. The events we're at now are usually on a mountainside somewhere. Beautiful places around the world and around the country.
Very interesting. That's so cool. And yeah, I can imagine them being very different. With Neversecond, do you think there's any challenges, maybe threats, maybe opportunities that may strengthen or weaken the company in the future, the brand in the future? Like what do you think might be some of those? You think?
Well, I was always concerned about competition. Competition is we have a couple of competitors, certainly two or three that are major competitors globally. And I think we're all taught very young that if you work hard, work harder, you're going to, and that is important. You need to work hard. I've never met, I will say, I've met plenty of people that say, they've been successful without having to work a lot, and I don't believe them. I've never in my life not had to work hard for what I wanted and for success. The one thing that we need to always kind of remember is that when you get up in the morning, your competitors are working hard too. So hard work a lot of times, especially at with brands, it isn't enough. You actually have to make really good decisions too. So that probably is the biggest threat is just the competitive nature of things. So I do get up every day knowing that someone wants to beat us at what we do and knowing that we need to defend our turf in a very aggressive way sometimes. And that's the reality of things. Mom and I are, I should mention, the exclusive investors in Neversecond. So we have a lot financially invested in the company. And so compared to, for instance, other companies that have done fundraising, we're spending our own money. So there definitely is, it's very real and very visceral, the feeling of success or failure because you have direct stake in the outcome. You do have a very good feeling about how things are going for Neversecond. The brand right now is certainly one of the top in the space. Is growing day after day, month after month, year after year. We're doing quite well. So, but I definitely don't take our position for granted. And hard work, I've certainly learned, isn't enough.
That's very true. I have to say there has been a lot of really great successes recently for Neversecond,
Mhm.
especially with now we're gaining more of a retail partnership with Fleet Feet, which is a really big deal for us, and then a bunch of other really great innovative projects that we have on the side.
Mhm.
Regarding the vision and the goals and the dreams for the brand, what do you hope to accomplish down the line, whether it's 5 to 10 years down, if there's any specific details you want to mention? Let's hear it for the brand. What do you see for the future?
So I'm 54 now, and I'm very keenly aware of my age. And I'm to me, when we first started, I wanted to build the next great American brand in the space. And I had at the time a 5 to 7 year plan. I've since learned that that's not possible. You can't be the next big brand in the space in 5 to 7 years. It takes a bit longer. But at the rate we're going, I think that I've got another good 3 to 5 years in me. So certainly before I turn 60, I'll probably pass the torch to someone else at some point. I think that's important to think about, like what do you eventually want out of the company? I do want it to be $100 million brand for sure. I mean, in terms of like if I needed to be real about it, one thing is for sure, I know we know what we want. You want to build something that is memorable and impactful, but you can't ignore the financial side of it. And in this space, it's important to know what you're doing. I mean, I know, for instance, that 100 million is about the top end for what we do in terms of the size of the brand. And to me, that's the target we're shooting for, and that's happen with me or after me, but that's what we're shooting for. Right now, the more immediate goal is to bring and build a team that really works well together. So the dynamic side of the business, how your team, aside from the revenue side and aside from the innovation side, it's how do you all get along? So building a really good culture is also really important for me. A team that really likes working with each other. That a lot of companies don't have that, so I think it's something that we really strive for. And that's really also the other part about the team is you're trying to figure out how the company, how it transitions and moves forward. Someone's got to replace you at some point,
Yeah.
and so it's important to never lose sight of that.
People are replaceable. It's
Mhm.
very true.
Right.
So regarding replaceability in a sense, and building a team for the interns and associates and all beyond that are looking for jobs and opportunities and way to get involved with not even just startups, but just like brands that are finally growing and that are becoming the powerhouses that they're meant to be.
Mhm.
What jobs and opportunities do you hope to expand down the line for people to get involved with more?
So in our space, it's we most of the people that work for us are in endurance sport. That's the one thing. It's like if you want to be in beauty, you have to kind of care about beauty. If you want to be in sports, you I think you have to kind of like sports. It's not just a business or another business. You actually have to like that. So to me, what we look for, first of all, is the people that work for us are all endurance athletes or are in the space of endurance sport. Right now, we're in the process of hiring tech reps and field reps, which work with retailers to help kind of improve or optimize those retail relationships. Store sales, or actually managing retailers. Retail is still, some folks say retail is dead. Retail is still very much alive. We love brick and mortar and retailers because that's where people can connect with the brand physically. So for us, it's a really important part of the business. We are also building out right now our event team, which is for folks that love to travel, don't mind being outside. It's a great career. So right now we've been building that team out. We are at a mentioned earlier 115 races around the country. There's some of them are 2 or 3 days long, and it's talking to athletes who are racing or running or competing at the event, talking to them about what we do. We also do a lot of what's called activations or activating at the events. It's like, how do you bring value? Like, right, one of the things we're doing right now, which is so cool. There's a major trail running race called Cocodona. Cocodona is in about another month and a half in Arizona. It is a 250-mile running race, trail race. It is not for the faint of heart. It's a very challenging event, and we're doing an aid station takeover there. Where what we're doing is we're building basically a haunted house aid station, bringing value to the athletes and a value to the event. So we need a team, of ghouls and goblins who will go and work that event for us. So a lot of what we do is a lot of fun, and that part of it is really fun. So that's another type of employee that we're looking for right now.
Oh, well noted, guys. Keep an eye out for all these opportunities because it's pretty exciting, all
Yep.
the fun little creative projects that are going along with these and events and
Yep.
competitions.
Think so.
I think that's so exciting. That's so cool. So, in conclusion, we always ask this question to all of our guests towards the end of the podcast with closing out. If you can give any piece of advice, it could be one, it could be multiple, that's up to your interpretation, of what they should do for the future. If you can give any piece of advice regarding anything, professionally or beyond, what would you give?
I mean, as I said earlier, I think one of the most important things is to be curious. Be curious and creative, and don't stop learning. Never stop learning. To me, that's probably the biggest piece of advice I can give. It is so easy to get in a lane and not learn new things. And I think there's so much technology, things are moving so incredibly fast right now. It is important never to lose sight of that, especially now. I'm actually, when I was a younger person, a younger working person entering the working world, things moved a lot slower. If you had a skill set, you could see the path much more clearly. Now, your ability to be curious and to take on new things and to learn is a strength. And so I would say that would be the single biggest piece of advice I would give to a younger version of me would be to stay curious and to be willing to learn new things every day, because that ability to change and learn and adapt will be a big differentiator among the modern workforce.
See, it's very interesting. Thank you so
So
much. It's
thank
great that
you.
you mentioned that.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Cubicle podcast with my father and our recent guest, Bill Armstrong. Thank you so much for being on here. It was an absolute pleasure. You killed it. You did a great job. You have crazy lore, and it obviously reflected the episode for your career and your professional background and how it will resonate with so many aspiring entrepreneurs that want to create their own path for themselves, but you know, are hesitant, they don't really know how to get involved and beyond. So I just want to say thank you so much for spreading your expertise and your knowledge based on your career. You've had an amazing one, and I can't wait to see down the line what you continue to accomplish.
Thank you for having me, Charlie. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you, interns and associates, for tuning in. I'm your co host, Charlie Armstrong, here, and stay tuned for the next episode for All is Said. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.